Hi there, this is Eshu. I'm the abbot here at Zenwest Buddhist Society. This Living Zen-podcast is just one of the many resources we've created at Zenwest to make Zen practice and training more available and accessible to people all over the world. Instructional videos, printable resources, and much, much more are also available on our website at www.zenwest.ca. If you're a regular listener, I'd love to hear from you. So please drop me an email at office@zenwest.ca and let me know who you are, how you got started, and what brought you to Zen. Everything we make available in person and online at Zenwest is only possible because of the support of our members and associates, people like you. If the efforts of our community are making a difference in your life, I'd like to invite you to show your support and take part in making it happen by becoming an associate or member of the Zenwest Sangha. You can do this by clicking the Join Us tab on our website at www.zenwest.ca. Thank you for your support, and thanks for listening.
Please make yourself comfortable. You can turn to face me if it helps. Sometimes I pull a face and it's hilarious. Today, I haven't been feeling so well. I think I've been running a mild fever all day and was planning to not come. But I got word that Reverend Doshu, who was going to give the talk tonight, was sicker than me. So I was asked if I would come and give the talk. And I said, oh, okay. Right now, Unzan, who last time he was here, I think he was Blair, but Unzan is right in the middle of a month of monastic training at Zenwest. So 4:30 mornings to around 9:30 at night, we're engaged in full-time training. Unzan started, Reverend Soshin went and gave a talk at a sociology course a few years ago, and there was a big bearded dude there, and he thought that sounded interesting, so he came to the Tuesday sits and listened to me talk a few times, and they started coming around the temple out in Suk to burn stuff and help do some work. And then he went back to Calgary, where he's from. And then a couple weeks ago, he turned up, ready to do a 36-kilometer pilgrimage and shave his head and live at the monastery for a month as an unsui, or a monk. I'm always inspired when people take up this practice in such a serious way. I don't get so many people coming out that way because when I set up this residential program, I did crazy things like said, well, first they should walk 36 kilometers. That seems to be a non-starter. Then they should shave their heads. And then I'll give them a funny name. And this seems to turn a lot of people off, I guess. But I know that the ones who come are really serious, or they're really crazy. And sometimes it's a little of both. But monastic training, when people come to train, it's not just like I sit on a high seat and, like I am the trainer and they are the trained. I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning and I'm cooking and I'm cleaning and I'm engaged in Dharma dialogue with them every day. And it's a powerful practice. And the more I engage in it, the more and more fully committed I become to doing this practice. It's a joy. So as much as I had resistance to coming tonight, the first 2 minutes of zazen, the first 2 minutes of sitting, I'm like, oh yeah, here I am. And when I come in after a couple of weeks of intensive practice, I'm very sensitive to what's going on. And I'm very sensitive to our egos and our way of carrying ourselves and our way of resistance. We had a conversation in the car on the way down that sort of touched on this and touched on how Zen practice works with what it is that we bring to the table. Sometimes I come in and I'm really combative, corrective. We have a form here and I like it to be followed. And I think some people come, and we tend to come in one of two ways. Either we're really also combative, resistant. We don't like the form. We want to sit the way that's comfortable for us. We want to do what we want to do. We don't want to chant these weird words. We don't want to sit still. We don't want to not itch. We don't want to breathe quietly. And there's this big, ugly guy saying, "Sit still, be quiet, don't move." So we do. Or else we're really submissive. We don't like being corrected. We don't like being pointed out. We don't like to feel different or not up to speed or uninformed, even if we are, even if it's our first time. And so we just struggle all we can to fit in and not be noticed. And on a Tuesday evening, it's only an hour, so most of us can manage this one way or the other. Most of us can, wait till Eshu falls asleep and then do whatever we want, or we can just sort of fake it while, hold on as long as the hour goes. And I think that some people get a little bit confused with the form and with the discipline of practice and think that somehow what we're doing here has something to do with getting it right or not being defeated or something like this. And it's easy to make that mistake. Some Zen centers are affiliated with martial arts dojos, and I know several that part of the martial arts training is for the black belts to go and do sesshin. Even if they've never done Zen before, this is a 7-day, 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. kind of intensive sitting all day. And when people do that, and the reason I don't encourage it is that most people come with that sort of warrior mindset, like you can't break me. And so sesshin becomes like a Klingon manhood ritual or something. And that's not the point. The point is that we do enough of that, whether we're a fitter inner, a placater, or whether we're a resistor and a fighter. Essentially, the activity is the same in that we hold ourselves separate from the environment that we're in. We have our safe place where we hurt and we're vulnerable, and we do all we can to protect ourselves from that. Either it's by becoming invisible, fitting in and avoiding conflict, or it's by donning armor and saying, "Fuck you." And so Zen practice, this form that we have, it's difficult in this environment where it's just an hour to get anywhere with it, because all of us can manage that for an hour. Well, anyone who's been to a Thanksgiving dinner with the family or Christmas, you can manage it for a few hours and keep it all in. But when we engage in something like a monastic practice or a sesshin, the pressure is constant. And it's not aggressive pressure. It's not like hitting us. So our tendency we can't sort of hold up the armor the whole time. And so it starts to gradually loosen. And sooner or later, in this really OCD kind of obsessive form that we have, where everything is sort of laid out how you do it, you're going to screw up, no matter how good you are, no matter how aware you are, no matter how careful you are to not misstep. When you get up at 4:30 in the morning and go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and you're doing physical labor and yoga and hiking and lots of sitting, you're going to trip. And you're going to be noticed over and over and over again. And it comes to the point where what we're doing to hold ourselves apart from our environment starts to break down. The armor that we've got around our hearts, the protective force field that we put up around our vulnerability and our frailty and our shame, begins to break apart. And there's a pressure that develops through sitting meditation. In Japanese it's called joriki, which is just energy. So there's an internal pressure that's developing while the sort of external defenses are being gradually worn away by just the form and consistency of practice. And eventually things start to burst forth. When this starts to happen, it can be a real struggle. We can feel like we're going crazy. Part of the reason that places like Zen West exist is because trying to do this kind of practice in the world makes you feel like you are crazy, or might make people around you think that you are crazy. It's all well and good for us to be in here talking about the deep sense of connectedness, realizing that I and the world around me and you and the bus and the tree and the plants and the birds, we are all intimately connected. This is one thing for me to talk about this in this context, but to experience this deeply forces a change in my conduct, forces a change in my perspective, forces a change in my behavior. And when that transition happens, it's very exciting. You know, sometimes it's like, wow, all this stuff that like Jesus talks about and Buddha talks about, like they weren't just messing around. This is actually, we're connected. And you go around talking to people and say, shit, we're connected. And you go to people that are like cops, and you say, we're connected, I want to give you a hug. And they say, come with me. And then you go and talk to a person in a room who says, you know, you understand that you and that police officer are two different people. Yes, but we're fundamentally one. Oh, I'll write you a prescription. And this sounds funny, but it's not. Because this is the reality. This is why these places like Zen West exist. Because they're places that can facilitate transformation. Transformation comes from within, but it has to manifest externally. And what is it that we're manifesting? What is it that transforms? From the time that we're really young, we get hurt. We have feelings. We have good feelings, joy and love and happiness. And we have feelings of hurt and grief and shame. And they're not separable. They're all bound up together in this one heart of ours, this one mind. And as we grow up, we become better and better at protecting ourselves because we don't like to be hurt. We don't like to be shamed. We don't like to be upset. And so we create this persona, personhood, an I, and we give it whatever characteristics that we feel will help us get through without being hurt. Maybe I'm a pretty person, or maybe I'm a big, strong guy, or maybe I'm a invisible that can pass through without anybody noticing me. It doesn't really matter. Eventually, that thing that protects us becomes a thing that isolates us. Because we're not just locking away the pain and the vulnerability, but we're locking away the joy, the connectedness. So as we practice Zen, all we're doing is melting that ice. Allowing just the simple activity of the breath, like a tide, to wash over us, and little bit by little bit allow this breath to soften us, to melt away this sort of calcified shell around our hearts. Little bit by little bit, or sometimes in great chunks, it melts away. And at times it can be overwhelming. At times we can simultaneously have powerful experiences of joy and sudden awareness of the suffering that exists in the world, in this whole world, not as something outside, but as my own experience, this suffering. So sometimes I think I come in and I'm loud and I'm maybe a bit scary, overbearing. I shout, something. But all of this is to just shake your calcified heart and invite you to melt, invite you to open, invite you to dissolve the armor that separates you from this beautiful unfolding cosmos of which you are a part. I think sometimes it's easier for me to shout and to drag you into the present moment than it is for me to just ask you to open your heart and love and be kind and be generous and take a moment to understand and to feel what's going on with the people around you, what's going on with the earth under your feet, what's going on with the air that you breathe. Walking in step is the easy part. Sitting up straight is the easy part. Getting up at 4:30 in the morning and working all day is the easy part. The hard part is to embrace and accept the responsibility for your unlimited heart. To manifest the complete capacity of this vast heart that beats within you. So, all of these things, all of these activities that we do, the form, the chanting, the bowing, we can look at them as things that we need to master, skills that we need to learn, or objects of form that we need to pick up on. But in truth, each and every one of them is just an invitation. It's an invitation for you to embrace what's unfolding in front of you. And in each case, we can make a choice. We can choose to hold ourselves out, to calcify our heart, or we can make the choice to embrace and become one with, and to share this unfolding heart. This activity, simple gasho, how much more a clear example of this practice can we get? Just bringing your hands together and bow. We can do it as a mechanical thing that we do as an aspect of form, or we can use it to realize that subject and object, inside and outside, I and you and all of the things in this room are intimately connected. And that's a beautiful thing that I have no response to except to just bow. So I won't make any promises that I won't be a yelling madman anymore. But just for tonight, I want us to really focus on allowing ourselves to melt, allowing ourselves to dissolve, to open our hearts to this practice, to this moment, and to our, just our unlimited capacity, our unlimited nature. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Living Zen podcast. If you follow Living Zen through iTunes, I would very much appreciate it if you would take a moment to let me know what you think about it by rating or reviewing the podcast, so that new listeners can also hear what you have to say. Thank you for your time and for your support.